Hey, what's up? It's Emily, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome back to the podcast. I 100% support both. I'm just happy you're hanging out with me. If this is your first time seeing my face, I'm really sorry. Usually I've got like a cool face of makeup on, I got a nice little fit on. I just came back from spin class. This is like the only slot of time I have to put this together, and it is what it is. Unfortunately, I'm sacrificing the visuals in order to get you the important information. So cut a girl some slack. Side note, I've decided spin is not for me. I was huffing and puffing the entire time. It was an out of body experience, but that's something I will complain about on TikTok, not here. Today, I want to talk about a different complaint because you know me. I love to complain. I always hear people tell me, Emily, I've tried networking. I listen to your tips, but it's just not working out for me. I just don't think networking is for me because it's failing. I'm not getting referrals for jobs. And that's what I want to focus on. Your networking is failing because of you, not because networking doesn't work. And that's what I want to talk about. To first define why networking doesn't work, let's talk about what good networking looks like and feels like and sounds like. Now, if you don't understand how to even start with networking, I've got a video here that is literally networking 101. It's what emails to send, it's how to conduct the conversation. This is where you want to start. This video is for people who fundamentally feel like networking just doesn't work for them or they haven't been successful in their networking. So good networking is actually a relationship game. It's not these weird onesie-twosie conversations that you occasionally have with an individual. Having one or two conversations with someone isn't actually building a relationship. And I think this is one of the biggest misconceptions about networking. People tend to think if I've met with Susie one or two times, definitely she's going to refer me for a position, and then boom, within a matter of 2 months, I've landed my dream job. And as much as I wish that were true, because trust me, I really do, I don't love networking that much either, that's just not going to cut it. Because if you've only reached out to Susie twice for 2 conversations on 2 separate occasions, how much does Susie really know you? The answer is probably not a lot. Most likely, in both of those conversations, you were asking Susie a bunch of questions, maybe about her career, any advice she has, how she likes her role, how she got into her role. And let me ask you this. What did you bring to the table for Susie? Or were you exclusively asking Susie a billion questions in hopes that it would advance your career? Susie and most other people you're networking with see through that stuff. It's the bullshit detector. It's a real thing. Let's keep rolling with my girl Susie. I'm going to give you 2 examples and you tell me in the comments where you think you're kind of falling in these 2. Example number 1, you reach out to Susie on LinkedIn because she's currently in your dream job. You set up the first conversation where you're asking her questions about her career and her goals and her growth. And then a month later, you reach out for another chat where you continue to ask her questions and maybe ask for some feedback on your resume. A month later, you reach back out and tell her you've applied for a job at her company, but you don't hear back. Here's scenario number 2. You reach out to Susie on LinkedIn, and yes, your first conversation is all about asking her questions to learn more about her career and potentially also asking for a little bit of advice and feedback. You reach out about a month later, you do the same thing, you've got a couple of questions ready to go, but you've also prepared to share Susie a little bit about how you've grown from your last conversation. You remembered she mentioned she was just getting a new dog. You ask her about the dog. You remember she mentioned she was up for promotion. You follow up and ask about that. You ask if there's anything you can do or any information you can provide that would make her life a little bit easier too. Maybe you're awesome at social media and she would love your feedback. Maybe you're great at networking and she would like to learn a thing or two from you. Or maybe she just wants some great TV recommendations. And all of those are fine. You continue to have these conversations with Susie for the next 4, maybe 5 months. Let's call it once a month each time. And then a role opens up at her company. You reach out and Susie says, that Emily's a really nice person. She went out of her way to ask if I needed anything. She's always remembering details about my life, and she's made a conscious effort over time to get to know me as well. Why don't I refer her for that job? And I know it might feel calculated, but I want you to stay with me for a second, kind of think through this. If you only meet with someone 1 or 2 times and the entirety of that conversation is you asking for things, literally that person is going to look at you and see through your bullshit. Clearly, you are only speaking to them because you want a job. And even though that's true in both cases, it doesn't feel good in that first situation. That person feels like you're using them, and that's not a great way to get ahead in your career, and that's not a great impression that you want to leave with people generally. But when you take your time to have 2-way conversations where you bring something to the table, where you ask them questions about their personal life, how you might be able to support them, That's where the magic happens. So you're hearing this, you're understanding it. What are you actually going to change about your networking strategy to get there? Prepare for your networking conversations a little bit differently. I want you to, yes, have questions ready to ask that individual, but also think about what value you're bringing and potentially what questions you might be able to ask that show a genuine interest in their life or open the door for them to ask you questions as well. It could be something as simple as, I remember you got a dog. How was that going? Or did you start that new series on Netflix? I've been absolutely loving it. Making room for small talk and making room for more of that human or friendly connection is really a great way to build that relationship. All to say, if you feel like your networking is failing, it's because you are treating it as a transaction and not a relationship business. It's because you're rushing through the motions of asking someone questions in hopes that you're going to get referred for a job, instead of taking the time to get to know that person, yes, at work, but even a little bit outside of work. You're taking the time to meet with them regularly. You're remembering details about your life, and you're making sure you add value however you can in that conversation. And then after maybe 2 or 3 or 4 great conversations, you can let them know, I would love to be referred for a role at your company if you're comfortable. Or you can start dropping hints that I am starting to look for a new opportunity. You can really make an impact by making the time to get to know someone, make it a long-term relationship, because networking only fails when it's a one-off transaction, not when it's a long-term relationship. Just like me, this was short, sweet, and to the point, and I hope that it was helpful. If you've got questions or feel like your networking is failing for other reasons, hit me in the comments. I'm going to reply to every single one. If you liked this video or this podcast episode, please take the 2 seconds that it does to leave a comment, a rating, a review, a thumbs up, a subscription, the whole shebang. It genuinely makes a world of a difference for me, and I would really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I'll talk to you next week.